Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into some really fascinating ancient texts, sources that tell the story of a disciple named Vakkali.
And it's a story with a bit of a puzzle at its heart.
Right. Because these sources describe this monk, Vakkali, whose devotion to the Buddha was, well, absolutely intense, overwhelming even.
It really was. But the intriguing part, the thing that makes you pause, is that his devotion wasn't really about the Buddha's teaching, the Dhamma, as you might expect.
No. What was it then?
It was focused almost entirely on the Buddha's physical form, his presence.
Okay, see, that's the hook.
Yeah.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack that, why this intense focus on the physical, and crucially, what did the Buddha teach him about what it really means to see?
Yeah, that core lesson about seeing. It's powerful.
So let's start at the beginning. Where do the sources say Vakkali came from?
Well, the texts tell us he was born into a Brahmin family in Savatthi. And the key moment seems to be when he reached maturity.
What happened then?
He saw the Buddha. The Buddha was entering the city for alms, a common practice, and Vakkali encountered him.
And it wasn't just a passing glance, was it?
No, not at all. The sources describe it as immediate and profound. He was just completely captivated.
Captivated by what exactly?
By the Buddha's physical form, his appearance. The texts use this term, sarira sampati, which points to his physical perfection, his grace, his beauty.
Wow. And they describe Vakkali's reaction.
They do. They say he became insatiable just looking at him. Like, he couldn't get enough of the sight of the Buddha.
Insatiable.
Yeah.
That's a strong word.
Right.
Just from seeing someone.
Huh?
And this intense fixation, the sources are clear, this is why he decided to become a monk.
Absolutely. Unequivocally, his sole motivation, as the texts put it, was to obtain seeing the Tathagata constantly.
Tathagata, that's one of the terms for the Buddha, right?
Yes, exactly. Often translated as the thus gone one, or the perfect one. So Vakkali's goal in ordaining was basically non-stop Buddha viewing.
And did he, follow through on that once he was in the order?
Oh, completely. The sources say she spent pretty much all his time just looking at the Buddha.
To the exclusion of other duties.
Yeah, that's the picture painted. Things like chanting, meditation, study, they fell by the wayside. His focus was just finding a spot wherever the Dasabala could be seen.
Dasabala, another name for the Buddha.
The 10-powered one, referring to his 10 special knowledges or powers. So yeah, Vakkali was all about the visual, the form.
Now, the Buddha must have noticed this, right? But the sources say he didn't step in immediately.
Correct. The text suggests the Buddha was patient. He waited. The phrase used is he waited for Vakkali's knowledge to ripen.
Like waiting for the right moment for the teaching to actually land.
Seems like it. He understood timing was important.
And when that moment finally arrived, the teaching was pretty blunt.
It was, yeah. Very direct. Knowing Vakkali was receptive, the Buddha asked him point blank, Vakkali, what is there for you to see with this putrid body?
Oof, this putrid body. That's stark, especially given Vakkali's perception.
It's a huge contrast, isn't it? A direct challenge to Vakkali's entire focus on the Buddha's seemingly perfect form.
And then came the core teaching itself.
Right after that question, the absolute heart of it, according to these sources, Vakkali, whoever sees the Dhamma, he sees me. Whoever sees me, he sees the Dhamma.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Whoever sees the Dhamma, he sees me.
Whoever sees me, he sees the Dhamma. It's this profound equation.
It really highlights the gap, doesn't it? Vakkali was stuck on the physical, the putrid body, as the Buddha called it. But the Buddha was pointing somewhere else entirely.
Exactly. Towards the Dhamma, the teaching, the truth, the underlying reality.
So the Buddha's saying, don't look at the temporary container, look at the timeless teaching. That's the real me you should be seeing.
Precisely. The essence isn't the flesh, which decays. The real Buddha to see, the enduring part, is the Dhamma itself. That's the path to focus on.
But even hearing this, Vakkali, he couldn't just flip a switch, could he? The attachment was too strong.
That's a really important part of the story. The sources are clear. Even after hearing this direct teaching, he couldn't give up seeing the Buddha and go elsewhere. The habit, the attachment, it was deep.
So understanding the words wasn't enough. The Buddha needed a different approach.
Seems so. He realized Vakkali needed something more potent to shake him up. The texts say he needed to gain spiritual urgency, savega, like a shock to the system.
A jolt to break the pattern.
Exactly. So the Buddha decided on a more drastic action.
And the timing here is significant too, right? Just before the rainy season retreat.
Yes, the Vasupanayika. The Buddha was heading to Rajagaha for the retreat.
And on the very first day of that retreat, what did he do?
He dismissed Vakkali, just like that. The sources say he told him simply, "Go away, Vakkali."
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine hearing that. From the very person you've dedicated your entire monastic life to just seeing.
Devastating. Absolutely devastating for Vakkali. The texts describe his immediate thought. The teacher doesn't speak to me. He felt completely rejected, banished.
He couldn't stay near him after that.
No, he felt he couldn't bear it. And his despair spiraled. He started thinking, what is the use of my life?
Oh no. That sounds like he was heading to a really dark place.
He was. The despair led him to make a truly desperate decision. He thought, I shall drop myself from the mountain.
He decided to end his life.
That was his plan. He climbed Vulture's Peak Gichakua, intending to jump.
But the Buddha knew. He was aware of this, even from a distance.
Yes. The sources emphasize the Buddha's awareness. He knew about Vakkali's suffering. The term used is kilamanabhava, this exhaustion and distress.
And he realized Vakkali might actually go through with it.
He did. He realized that without some kind of solace, Vakkali might destroy the basis for the path and fruits, basically throw away his chance for enlightenment.
So the Buddha intervened. But how, if they were apart?
Not physically in person. To prevent the tragedy and offer comfort, the Buddha emitted a radiant light, an obhasamunichi, like a beacon.
A spiritual manifestation, then, not just ordinary light.
Exactly. A way to show himself across the distance.
And did words come with this light?
They did. The texts use this lovely image. It was as if filling a dry pond with a flood. Comforting, life-giving.
What did he say?
First, he spoke a verse designed to create intense joy and relief in Vakkali Balavaputta Pamoje. The verse went, a bhikkhu abundant in joy, who is serene in the Buddha's teaching, would attain the peaceful state, the calming of formations, happiness nirvana.
A reminder of the goal, the possibility of peace through the Dhamma.
Precisely. And then, as if reaching out, the texts say the Buddha stretched out his hand, maybe visually in the light, maybe metaphorically, and spoke 2 more verses.
What were they?
Come, Vakkali, don't be afraid. Look at the Tathagata. I shall lift you up like an elephant stuck in the mud, and then again reinforcing the rescue. Come, Vakkali, don't be afraid. Look at the Tathagata. I shall lift you up like the moon seized by Rahu.
Powerful imagery of rescue and reassurance.
Absolutely, pulling him back from the brink.
And Vakkali's reaction to seeing the light, hearing these words.
It was immediate, instantaneous transformation. The sources say the moment he perceived the Buddha's presence through the light and heard the call, his great sorrow disappeared. Gone.
Just like that. Replaced by
overwhelming joy, intense relief. His thought was, the Dasabala has been seen by me and the call come has been received.
And what did he do? Did he climb down?
His reaction was quite dramatic, actually. The texts say, filled with this joy, he sprang up into the air right there on the mountain peak towards the manifestation.
He leaped into the air.
Seriously.
That's what the sources describe. And this is the absolute climax of the story.
What happens while he's in the air?
It's incredible. The detail is so specific. While his first foot was still on the mountain, suspended in midair, he was contemplating that first verse. The Buddha spoke the one about joy and the teaching leading to peace.
The Nirvana verse.
Yes. And in that moment, contemplating the Dhamma, while literally elevated, he overcame his joy, transcended even that feeling, and attained enlightenment.
Right there, in midair. Right there. The texts say he attained arahantship along with the 4 analytical knowledges. Full liberation.
Wow. Arahantship, a fully awakened being. And those 4 analytical knowledges, the payasambidahi, that signifies deep wisdom, right?
Deep, penetrating insight into the teaching, its meaning, its expression, a hallmark of arahantship. So from the depths of suicidal despair, triggered by a spiritual vision and the words the Dhamma, liberation.
An astonishing turnaround. What happened next?
The narrative concludes quite simply. He then descended while worshiping the Tathagata and stood near the Buddha, his inner journey complete.
And the sources mention any later recognition for him.
They do. It's noted that later the Buddha placed him in the chief position among disciples who were liberated by faith, the Sattata Vimutana Agahane.
Liberated by faith. That seems fitting, given his starting point.
It does. Recognizing his unique path, beginning with that intense, perhaps naive faith in the physical form, which was ultimately redirected and transformed into liberating insight through the Dhamma, spurred by the Buddha's skillful means.
What a journey. From that almost obsessive focus on the Buddha's body, through the pit of despair on Vulture's Peak, to literally leaping into enlightenment through understanding the Dhamma.
It's a powerful illustration of that central teaching, isn't it? Seeing the Dhamma is seeing the Buddha, the real enduring essence is in the truth, the teaching, not the temporary form.
It really makes you reflect. This ancient story kind of holds up a mirror. It asks us to think about what we truly see when we value someone or something.
Are we caught up in the surface, the appearance, the impermanent part?
Or are we looking deeper to the principles, the wisdom, the qualities, the real essence that they represent? It's a good question to ask ourselves, you know. What is it that you are truly seeking to see?